Hi, everybody. Hello out there. Welcome to the Glam Hive Live Summer Bazaar. And welcome to our panel. We are in track 2, the business of fashion. And this panel is called Looking Forward, Acting Now, a conversation on sustainability. And we've got 6 panelists with us today. And I'm going to be introducing everyone in no particular order, but maybe just give a little wave when you get introed. And then I believe the way that this works is once we start, whoever is speaking is the person that the audience can see. So that's just going to be good to know. So our first panelist, again, in no particular order, is Yvette Sanchez. She is a wonderful stylist, and she's also got some very sustainable minded clients, including Leonardo DiCaprio, James Franco, Giselle, are amongst the many people she's worked with. So everyone say hello to Yvette. There she is by the plant. And another fabulous stylist, and also one of our huge Glam Hive partners and supporters is stylist Tara Swennen, who's based in Los Angeles. Works with a lot of wonderful actors and actresses that I'm sure many of you have heard of. Kristen Stewart, Julie Bowen, amongst them. So hello, Tara. And we've also got Jennifer Stucco, who is the founder of Proda Fiore, which is a sustainable luxury footwear brand. And she is based in New York City, right?
Yes.
Okay, so we're a little bi-coastal today. And then next up, we've got Vanessa Barboni-Halleck, who is the founder of the fashion brand Another Tomorrow. Hi, Vanessa.
Hi.
Hi, and okay, so next up in another beautiful white top, Saima Chowdhury, who is the founder of Grey State, another sustainable, wonderful contemporary fashion brand, and Samata, who is the CEO of Red Carpet Green Dress, which is a wonderful organization that has really done so much to bring sustainability to the forefront of the red carpet here in Hollywood. So welcome. Hi, everybody. So we've got quite a few questions to get through, and there's 6 of us. So don't feel that everyone has to answer every particular question. Sometimes I will single people out to answer, but again, just raise your hand or give a little call out if there's a question that you feel really strongly about addressing. And I am going to make sure that everyone gets equal speaking time because we've got apparently the whole 45 minutes today. So we get a little extra time to dive into all these topics. So the first one is going to be, and I think it kind of can tie into the second question as well, but being a sustainable brand, I think means so many different things to so many people. And I think there is still a lot of confusion out there with the consumer. What is a sustainable brand? Does it mean you use organic things? Does it mean you upcycle? Is it your manufacturing process? I think there's a lot of different answers to this. And I think it ties in with how each of you decided to go into the sustainable route when you went into business. So who would like to kick off this question? What does it mean to be a sustainable brand?
I'll go.
All right, why don't you start, Saima, and then we'll go to Jennifer.
Yeah.
Okay. So exactly, like sustainability is, there's so many different definitions, right? So for our brand, what we did was we kind of went to a resource that was already established. So the UN has these 17 sustainable development goals that they have defined by 2030 to reduce poverty, protect the planet, and to reduce inequality. So we've taken that as our framework, and we just ensure that under each of that, we have programs that is addressing the goals within that. So, and there are really 3 areas of sustainability. If you think about it, there's environmental, there is social, and then there's ethical, right? So the 3, you kind of have to address all of the 3 things together. So for us, and then for fashion in particular, I think when you think about sustainability, you have to think about it in the demand side as well as the supply side. So what does that mean? So where your product comes from, how are you producing your product? Are you sustainable in your entire production process? that's really important. But then the other part of it is that there is too much inventory in fashion, right? There's too many choices, too much inventory, and that leads to all this excess product at the end of the day and excess consumption. So how are you demand planning so that you're not buying too much, you're offering just the right amount of product? That's also really important. So when we in context, just to put things in context, we are actually a manufacturer as well. So we have our own supply chain. So we have full transparency throughout the supply chain. So we ensure that at every part we're addressing, how do we reduce inequality? How do we be more sustainable in terms of the environment? And then are we doing the right thing, right? So we have, I'll just give one example. We work in a mill that's OEKO-TEX certified. So what does that mean? We don't use any harmful chemicals in our production process. We have an effluent treatment plant so that the dyes and chemicals at the end is cleaned out. We work in a LEED certified factory, so it's the factory is built in a way so it minimizes energy usage and has a lot of recycles energy. So all of those things we plant a tree every time we ship an order. So I think it's thinking through the entire cycle and ensuring that you are addressing each of these things. So that's
Right.
how I would define it.
I think you were a great person to start because you're really highlighting there's an entire life cycle to clothes, not just where the consumer interacts with it. Now, Jennifer, you have a different kind of business in that you focus on a particular category and in the fashion industry. So why don't you speak to, vis-a-vis your company and Protofiore, what does sustainability
Yeah.
mean to you guys?
So at sustainability for us, what it means is creating something in the present moment, essentially, without sacrificing the needs and wants of the future. It's really at the ethos of everything that we do. I founded the company just a little bit over a year ago with sustainability built into the entire ethos, starting with our supply chain. So it's really interesting to hear you speak, Saima, about the supply that you use, because I've applied a lot of your thought process to what we're doing at Protofiore. So for example, we've started with our materials first. So when I built and sourced our supply chain to make these shoes, I looked for supplies that has certain certificates that prove that they are truly sustainable and that they're made in sustainable facilities. So for example, we're using upcycled apple skins and upcycled grape skins, and they come from the food waste industry. And those materials in particular are made in solar panel facilities. So like Simon said, it's not just about the material, the end result, it's also about where they're made. So that's really important for me. The sourcing and the supply chain has been first and foremost. And then of course, the manufacturing. So our product is fully sourced and made in Italy. And to Simon's point, I'll just touch on what she mentioned, choosing your kind of mission and your point. I want to logically during the past of partnership and shoemaking in Italy, and we're merging it with the future by using these innovative, sustainable materials. So we're working with generation manufacturer in Italy that's been making shoes for a really long time and market where the tradition is passed down from family to family. So it's really exciting to work with them. So I've started first with really the supply chain and the manufacturing, and it goes all the way to our logistics and how we package our goods and ship them to the customer. So it's truly full circle. And in terms of SDGs, the Sustainable Development Goals, we actually are fulfilling a good amount of them, and that helped me create the company with a good base in the beginning, because I kind of use them as my guidelines and my goals of what I wanted to achieve. So that's been really, really helpful. And I definitely recommend that for any brand to look at those goals and say, am I achieving these, and how can I achieve them if I'm not? Another thing that helps, sustainability for me is the B Corp certification. So I'm part of what's called the B Corp Clinic, and this clinic allows me to start my journey to become a B Corporation in the US. And what that means is I can essentially hold myself accountable for all of my business processes. So right now I'm starting with an environmental purpose essentially, but I'd like it to be everything that I do, how I treat my employees, how I create my contracts, everything. So, sustainability is a very wide term, but we're starting with our products first and supply chain manufacturing, but eventually we'll build on to other things as I grow. So.
Interesting. I love that there's so much transparency that's available now for companies to share with consumers. I think that goes a long way towards education.
Yeah.
Um, I'm wondering for you, Vanessa, as another brand founder, how did you decide to go down the road of sustainability? I mean, what led you to this point and founding Another Tomorrow? Because I know you had a career not in fashion beforehand.
Yeah, it was really a kind of a happy accident. So I feel like it sort of chose me as opposed to the reverse. I spent 15 years in finance focused on emerging markets, and I took 6 months off as a sabbatical, thinking that I was going to shift gears into sustainable finance, because I think that there's such an enormous need to channel capital more responsibly. And I really second the B Corp structure as a means of accountability, which we recently joined. But really, I was going through each individual industry during this time off and saying, okay, before I really move into sustainable finance, I should have a more sound understanding of how all of these industries are really throwing off these really negative unintended consequences, these negative externalities. And genuinely, a lot of industries are fairly straightforward. But when I got to fashion, which is an industry that I certainly have a really deep personal relationship with, and was really one of my sole kind of outlets for creative expression when I was in finance, I was just floored by how impactful it is on the global scale, how opaque it is, and really just the actual complexity in the industry. And, I definitely didn't approach that set of information initially with saying, oh my gosh, I need to completely switch gears career-wise. But when I found that employing my knowledge into my personal purchasing decisions was so incredibly frustrating, I thought, no one's ever going to do this. And I saw the power that some of the challenger brands had in other industries, and really shifting the mindset of consumers about how accountable brands should be, and really modeling what's possible. And that was what led me to found Another Tomorrow. It was really information I couldn't unknow, and I really felt a sense of responsibility to change.
Got it. That's interesting. And you came from a different path that really let you see these things behind the scenes. So I
Yeah.
think that's really interesting. I've got a question for Samata. I mean, I think that the name of your company, Red Carpet Green Dress, is very self-explanatory, but in what ways do you communicate with your audience about, sustainability, and how do you explain that? You're at a very glamorous setting,
Yeah.
you're surrounded by, it's time and there's a lot of excitement and focus on, glamour
Yeah.
and Hollywood. So how do you get the sustainability piece in there?
Yeah, a very, very good question. Well, I think, Red Carpet Green Dress was started by Susie Amos Cameron and James Cameron, and it was the year they were going to the Oscars for Avatar. And anybody who knows their work knows they're an extremely passionate couple when it comes to the topic of the environment and sustainability. And I think if you work in fashion, you know that on that red carpet, one of the main questions that every single person is asked is, what are you wearing? What are you wearing? And so they really saw that question as an opportunity to have a much bigger conversation about fashion and its impact, because I think on a surface level, these are beautiful gowns, these are beautiful tuxedos, but when you really unpack what's gone to make this particular item, from the textiles and the dyes to where it's been made, how it's been made, if there have been artisan hands on that, the social responsibility element of it, there's so much more than just a beautiful dress. And so what we wanted to do was take that window, that mainstream window where you have millions and millions of eyeballs on this red carpet, and have a conversation with people around the globe in their own homes about fashion and its impact. And so for us, it's been really exciting, because with the partnerships we've had, whether it's been with like a luxury house like Louis Vuitton or Armani, across to a small independent designer like Laura Basky, what we're allowed to do is create kind of this seed of a conversation in people's minds that, wow, this is something that relates to me. We all wear clothing every single day, and the way that fashion is being made right now is harming not just the planet, but there's a bigger conversation about the impact it's having on our bodies. There's so much intelligent information out there right now about the impact of dyes and materials on our biosphere. So even though it's this like glossy red carpet, and it's a very exciting project for those reasons, and I find that red carpet design is always super exciting. Like, I always get excited about seeing what people are wearing, but the fact that we can have a more meaningful conversation with that simple question really empowers us to have conversation, but beyond that, create movement within the fashion industry. So yeah, I love kind of the work that we do, but ultimately it's about, well, how can we change mindsets? I think someone else used the word mindset before, and I think once you can get people to think differently about the clothes that they're wearing and have that personal relationship with it, I think that's where we can really see a difference and make the kind of changes that we really need to make quite soon, to be honest with you. So yeah, that's kind of how Red Carpet started, and what we do on the red carpet.
Right. And your founders, like you said, have such a platform. Everyone's,
Yes.
you know, you've got this captive audience
Yes.
of billions of people who are watching these events. So, you know, I'm curious to know from the two stylists on the panel, Yvette and Tara, you work at it from both sides because you're working with the actors, you know, who are going to be wearing these things and kind of spreading this message, you know, via the media, but also, you know, what they wear also impacts consumer behavior so much. So it's like you are communicating with consumers almost like through your clients when you send them down a carpet. So tell me about how you really lead the sustainability effort, you know, for what you do, being behind the scenes image makers. Tara, why don't you start?
All right. Well, you know, I mean, I think the biggest thing to remember, of course, is that we use it as a platform. You know, I mean, like you said, you know, because we are image makers, we sort of have, you know, high residency around the world, and every red carpet can be used for a purpose. You know, our goal is to basically, you know, create aspirational fashion without sacrificing or exploiting the environment. So the goal is to sort of pair glamour, you know, with the ethics, you know, and, you know, putting sustainability in the spotlight. So, you know, I think that the first step is getting the right items into the door. And that means, you know, obviously educating your client first and foremost, you know, and having them help make decisions and help create that impact. You know, I think, you know, beyond that, of course, once you do the styling, you know, and again, what we do is we create a story. So we want to create a story that has the meaning, that be choosing specific brands, you know, for reasons, you know, upholding the idea of artisanry, you know, raising awareness to certain things, whether that be their choices, or even these days, people are using it as a platform, you know, with pins or things that they do, you know, even just verbiage, you know, on their shirts, whatever it is, it's elevating that knowledge. And then really sort of, you know, trying to raise awareness on our own front. I mean, I know, as it is, well, you know, we use our social media to sort of try and push the needle forward, create things like this where, you know, we can sort of bring people together at the forefront and use leaders to really get the word out there. Because I don't think that most people, you know, as far as consumers, when they're making these choices, really take the time to think about it. And it's not to anyone's fault. It's just that brands have not been transparent. The media has not pushed it enough, you know, and it's something that everybody sort of needs to get on board with to, you know, change the mindset in general. So.
Definitely. It starts with education. And Yvette, how do you approach that? I mean, it sounds like some of your clients are already, if not very educated, but also very active in the sphere of sustainability. So how does that help when you're trying to get that message across, when you build that story with your work?
I think what's important is culture, and what comes to mind when you ask that question is culture and the stylists. And what happens in Hollywood is quite the opposite, but I'm so glad it's happening little by little. But engaging with the stylist community about changing culture, sustainable culture, and the way things are done, and this gives the opportunity to involve hair and makeup. For instance, an example would be to rewear something, and hair and makeup can be involved in the sustainability conversation and part of the solution, and also favor responsible brands over other brands. I mean, other brands, so many brands are on a sustainable journey, but everyone has they're in a different place. And so I feel like we have to respect that and favor the responsible brands and communicate with our clients about what sustainability means. It, you know, the social responsibility, the economic responsibility, the environmental responsibility, and addressing waste at fittings is another solution, and committing to brands by addressing that waste, because there's so much waste in the fashion industry, and styling is no different. We have so much waste. There's boxes and boxes and so many options. So committing to brands who are who have sustainability embedded in their DNA, in their core values, is what will change the industry and change the culture, and help us all adopt an embedded sustainable culture for styling. But the most important really is the circular economy, I feel, and curiosity about the circular economy, being curious about it, and engaging in circular economy, reading about it, knowing about it. It's not quite here yet. It's certainly not at scale, but I feel that circular economy is the only way forward, truly. And it sends a clear and positive message to the world about, you know, where we need to be.
Absolutely, thank you. I'm curious to know, for some of the brand founders out there, how do you compete with brands who are also making, you know, beautiful things, yet they're not necessarily sustainable? And Jennifer, I'll start with you here, since there are far fewer sustainable luxury shoe brands than there are the opposite. So how do you compete when you're trying to get the attention of your customers?
Well, I mean, the customer's mindset is shifting, so that's really exciting to me. I just read a study yesterday that from McKinsey that 71% of consumers are indicating that they'll invest in high quality fashion in the future. So I think that's very exciting, but so we're going in the right direction for sure. But for me and Prota Fiori, I think what really sets us apart is that our brand is truly authentic, and that's what people really want. I started this company with really nothing much, not very many resources, because I really got excited about sustainability. I started educating myself on climate change. I've worked in fashion for 10 years. I'm Italian, I'm American. Our values are embedded in the brand, and I've really put myself out there to be super vulnerable and talk about that and say what my challenges are and opportunities. And I think people really enjoy that, and they like to hear that. So I think what really sets us apart is that we are truly authentic. I started this from day one with sustainability in mind, and as the main goal to be truly like a catalyst for change and be a fun voice, but at the same time make beautiful product. So I think the customer, first and foremost, they'll be attracted to a brand because they like what the brand stands for, and they love the values, and they like what it represents. And then next, it's the product. Do they like the product, whether it's sustainable or not? So our product is super high quality. It's handmade in Italy. It's built on this ethos of sustainability. So if they like what they see physically, sustainability for the consumer is almost like an added bonus right now. It should be number one, but you can't really force it upon them. It's like teach, not preach. And I think by having this approach of focusing on making beautiful product first, with sustainability at the core, with an authentic mission, is what will win over the consumer in the end, really. I mean, there are some really beautiful luxury footwear brands out there that I absolutely love, but there's no one in the space that's started the way that I've started. So I think for the younger consumer especially, or the more conscious consumer and shifting one, this is a brand that they'll definitely go to over one that isn't showing authenticity to make change, because we all can. So I think that's how we'll do it. So.
100%. I want to welcome our 7th panelist, Umberto. Hello, how are you?
Hi, I'm very good. What about you?
Good, thank you. We have just started to dive in here to, what sustainability means to each brand and each person on this panel, and kind of why people decided to go down this route. And I'll ask you as well. I mean, what really brought you on the journey to create sustainable luxury footwear? And how do you compete with all these other you know, I was just asking Jennifer, these other companies that are not, I mean, there's a lot of people creating beautiful things, but it's almost an extra challenge.
Yeah, let's say that sustainability is in my DNA since my family business is producing alternatives to leather since 55 years. And we have 4 mills around the world. And in the Italian ones, since I joined the company, I tried to transform synthetic leather from the cheap alternative of real leather into a more durable, luxury, and sustainable one. So we've been lucky enough to work with clients like Stella McCartney. And thanks to this collaboration, we ended up creating a totally new material that it's, instead of being 99% derived from petroleum, it's 85% bio-based. It means that it comes from natural raw materials like viscose, cereals, corn, cotton. And it really looks like leather, but it's lighter and more resistant. So once I had this material in my hand, I realized that 3 years ago, there was not a single brand who took sustainability serious to make a luxury sneaker. So thanks to all the synergies I had with my family company, and thanks to all the connection that I had in the Italian land, with all the suppliers of all the other components apart from upper and lining, I basically decided to try to do it myself. And this is how it all started. And it's a mission that is every season we're trying to elevate our level of sustainability. Like the cool thing of our brand, and I think of all sustainable brands, is that sustainability is never to be considered an arrival point, but always a starting point. So for this reason, every time, every collection we come out with, apart from presenting a new model and new colors, we always try to elevate and to transform the components that you see and that are hidden inside the shoe into more sustainable ones.
Cool. Well, that sounds, it just sounds so fortunate that you're able to really create a whole new material that's really coming at it, is really taking it seriously from a supply chain point of view, because starting with sustainability. I've got a question for you, Vanessa. How do you encourage, you know, as a brand founder, your consumers to buy less? I mean, that is part of what being sustainable is about, and making these really considered choices, yet you still want to grow your business. So how do you walk that line and that balance?
Yeah, you know, I think it really does come back to this idea of circular economy and making sure that your actual business infrastructure and business model is aligned with that goal. And so for us, we decided to actually embed resale from the outset in our business model, because, you know, as a luxury goods company, these are items that are intended to last a lifetime. And so how do we actually encourage that? And for us, we do that by having resale in our own model. I think that also really does start to help democratize quality as well. I think that you see a lot of luxury brands, for example, and you have a lot of fans, but not that many customers. And so by actually creating really kind of these 2 new tiers of price points, for us, the first one comes through being predominantly direct to consumer, but then also a resale model. It really opens it up to, you know, much wider audience, and does allow you to fundamentally make less, but still maintain a profitable business over the long term. So it's that combination really of business model with communication.
Got it. I think it's interesting. I've got a question for Saima, as a founder and as well as a manufacturer. And you started this conversation off with talking about the 17 points that you try to adhere to when you start a sustainable company. If you were going to walk a new founder, you know, through that, would you say that is the best place to start, or what would your advice be?
Yeah, I think the first place to start is really understanding how your product is being made, right? Because that's such a huge part of the sustainable journey. So, and what does that mean? So you have to kind of break that down. So it's looking at your raw materials, making sure that you're using the right raw materials that are not environmentally harmful. And if they can have a positive impact, that's even better. But then it's also walking through the manufacturing process. So how much water is being used Is there waste being generated? Are there things that could be done to reduce the energy usage within the factory where your product is being made? So you have to really learn, I think, the entire supply chain and look at every process and see how is it being done today and can it be improved? And then a really important part of the supply, you have true partnerships. So it goes both ways, right? The partner, your supplier must be your true partner. If not, it's really hard to achieve sustainability because you have to trust them, they have to trust you, and you really have to believe that whatever your values are, they're adhering to in their practices. So that comes on the environmental side. Then you have to also look at social and ethical and make sure that all of that's being followed. So that comes through your entire supply chain process. And then I would also encourage new brands to look at how are you planning your demand, how are you planning your assortment, how much choices do you have, and how much inventory are you ordering, so we're not, fashion is in this cycle of over inventory and discount, and we have trained the consumer to buy too much and throw away, right? So it's kind of changing that mindset to say, let's buy fewer, let's buy better, and let's make sure that what we're buying, we're mindful about how we're spending our money, because that's how you can bring change about. So I think that would be my two pieces to sort of focus on.
Okay, great. What about you, Samata? As someone who's founded, it's more of a movement, it's very event-based, and you're bringing people together, not necessarily to buy things, but to kind of communicate these values through either, big events that have a huge platform, or, these, gatherings that you can create. So what would your advice be for someone who would like to get into this via platform and events?
Yeah, so I think, Red Carpet Green Dress, our Oscars collaboration is one of kind of 6 avenues of what we actually do. So we actually do have brand collaborations throughout the year, because I think one of the things that we've experienced with sustainability, and I think everyone who's kind of contributed to the conversation this evening has also kind of alluded to this, that there's an element of inaccessibility to this. For so many people around the world, sustainability is something they feel that they cannot be part of, in terms of whether it's out of their price range, whether it's a terminology they don't understand. There is an exclusionary element to how sustainability is kind of set up right now. And it's not that intersectional. And when I say that, I mean that the majority of the bodies and the people who are really kind of, I guess, creating or carrying the grunt work of our industry tend to be invisible in so many of these dialogues, whether it's garment workers in Bangladesh or whether it's the dye specialists in China. They don't tend to be in the dialogue around how can we make this industry better. And so what we try and do with Red Carpet Green Dress is make sure it's a global conversation. I think we're living in a space where a lot of the time, I think the Western world feels like they are teaching other parts of the world how to be sustainable, and that's just not really accurate. In other parts of the world, botanical dyes, natural dyes, circular economy, it's how they've always lived. It's how they've essentially been for centuries, and it's something that we've actually often learned from them. So with Red Carpet Green Dress, it's important that we make sure that sustainable fashion is seen through a global lens. If you think about, for example, biodiversity, that's just one kind of element of how fashion impacts the environment. 70% of biodiversity loss right now is happening in countries like Madagascar, Papua New Guinea, the Democratic Republic of Congo. Yet when we're having conversations about how we can make a difference in this space, communities and grassroots organizations from these parts of the world are not included in the dialogue. So a big part of our work is not just about using the platform to, share messaging, which is extremely impactful, because we work with natural dye specialists, we work with small independent fashion brands, we work with student designers, emerging designers. So we really are trying to bring more people into the conversation and not exclude people. We want people to really connect the dots between the clothing that they wear and how they can make more sustainable, conscious decisions, whether it's re-wearing, whether it's supporting natural dye movement, whether it's buying brands that are really following sustainable fashion principles with certifications, all of that stuff. So it's about broadening this conversation and not narrowing it so that so few people feel like they can even be part of it. So the platform is one of the ways we do that, but we have educational platforms with fashion colleges, brand collaborations with more accessible fashion brands, so people can actually buy and be part of sustainable fashion. It's ongoing work. I think someone said this before. It's a constant journey, and it's constantly trying to not preach to people and not shame people out of the dialogue, but teach them how they can make more sustainable, impactful decisions with the clothes that they're wearing. So we're very, very much focused on not being kind of elite and coming from a place of privilege and shaming people that can't do this, but showing people how every single person can contribute to this conversation and how it's relevant to all of us. So I think that's kind of how we try and use our platform and our organization.
Got it. So it's about making fashion more inclusive in a way that you can also be a part of these new ideas.
Exactly.
Got it. I'm curious to know from each of you, since you are all working kind of at the really bleeding edge of sustainability, and a lot of you are behind the scenes as manufacturers of even these raw materials. Could you talk about some of the upcoming innovations or new releases, new brands or new products that you guys are most excited about? Who wants to raise their hand?
I've got one. Can I share one?
Yes.
Because I only found out about this the other week, and I'm extremely excited about it. So my family are from Ghana, and there's an area in Ghana which is where a lot of e-waste is sent from the Western world, so from the US, from the UK. So, you know, phones and so on and so forth, and it's just dumped there, and e-waste is a huge issue. But there's a collaboration that's happening between a really incredible eco activist, Nikki Reed, who I'm sure you're aware of. She's an actress, but she's also now a fashion entrepreneur, where she's actually reclaiming gold from the motherboards of mobile phones, and she's collaborated with Dell to do this. And they're basically upcycling this gold and turning it into products. And the reason that's so important is because e-waste is probably one of the most toxic forms of waste. It releases chromium, lead, mercury into ground soil, into groundwater. And it was found that a kind of dumping site in Accra, Ghana, an egg that hatched from a chicken there was 220 times over the health safety limit of all of these toxic kind of metals and so on and so forth that had been absorbed from the groundwater. And that is all due to the e-waste that's being dumped there. So even for people who don't necessarily connect the dots between, you know, the fashion industry and people across the world, I think there are some really emotive and powerful examples of how waste is being, I think someone mentioned it earlier, I don't know if it was Yvette, I can't remember who mentioned waste, but so many ways that we can re-see waste. You know, I've always believed that waste is only waste if you waste it. And I think that philosophy is something that's really powerful. People are turning waste into the most beautiful things and helping us like reimagine what we're throwing away. And I think that's a big part of sustainable fashion as well. So that was one thing I discovered recently that I was, my mind was blown.
Super cool. Thanks for sharing.
I'll jump in for 1 second just on the stylist front. I think it's been really fun to see when we do, you know, the option of customizing something for our clients. When I have brought up sort of to designers, maybe using dead stock, for instance, you know, some sort of either, you know, upcycled materials or recycled materials, or the idea of dead stock, which people who don't know, you know, it's obviously stuff that was not used and, you know, is almost considered waste, but obviously is usable. And I love that idea just from, you know, that element for us, where I know companies, you know, in and of themselves are using many new technologies, innovations, and, you know, fabrics, and also natural resources, obviously coming up with, you know, new ideas. But I love it just from our standpoint, you know, because the what we can do, you know, beyond obviously communicating through the red carpet, is getting designers to sort of have that awareness from that level as well, even if it's a one-off customization. So I just think it's always fun to do that.
For sure. Thanks for sharing. Does anyone have any other, you know, whether it's innovations or partnerships that they want to talk about?
I'm very excited because I've been working since 6 months. We've been working with the US Department of Agriculture. We've been testing all the components of our sneaker to prove that every single one of them is sustainable and it's naturally composed. And within 1 month, our sneaker will be certified from the USDA that it's 70% bio-based. And this is something that never happened before. And for us, it's a great result, and we're very satisfied with it.
That is a great breakthrough. Congrats.
Yeah.
Jennifer, you're welcome. What about you? And then Simon.
Well, speaking of waste, so our shoes are around 80% to 90% made from waste. So mostly from the food industry, which is super exciting. The shoes that we're launching with actually this month are made out of what I mentioned before, the upcycled apple skins and the upcycled grape skins. So these are super cool. The upcycled apple skins come from the north of Italy, and they come from the post-production of apple juice and apple jam production, or apples that don't make it to the markets in Italy. So if the apple isn't like perfect and shiny, for example, they usually toss it. And now we're taking those apples or the apple waste from juice and jam production and turning it into a leather alternative. And that to me is super fun and really cool. And our upcycled grape skins are coming from the post-production of wine in Italy. So we're using the grape mark to make a leather alternative. And I think that this is really cool, again, coming from the food industry. So those are two of my favorite materials that we're launching our shoes with. The top part of the shoe is made with the apple skins, and the inside of the shoe is made with the grape skins. And then we're also using recycled brass. So on, for example, like the clasp of the shoe, and this comes from the post-production of other brass materials. So we're taking the waste. Everything essentially comes from scraps and waste, another term for dead stock, essentially. So that's exciting. And then we're also using upcycled plastic. So we're taking plastic waste, and we use this for our toe puffs, which is the padding on the front of the shoe that you can't see. So that's pretty much what we're using right now. And we're also testing some other materials from the agricultural industry in Italy, which is really fun. So the shoes are always typically made out of some sort of food waste, which I love. So.
Yeah, it's a very attention-grabbing way to differentiate yourself as well, because not everyone can.
Not typical, yeah.
Exactly. Saima, you wanted to say something earlier as well.
Yeah, so we've actually been working on a couple of different projects when it comes to innovation in fabric. So one I'm really excited about for our fall collection, about 30% of the collection is made with recycled fabrics, which is launching in the next month. How that works is, when you cut a garment and you have a piece of fabric, there's all this cutting waste that then goes away as scrap, and it's landfill waste. So we take that, sort them, collect all the scraps from different factories, sort them by color, and then it's torn down and then spun again into yarn and then knit up again as fabric. And then we've worked really hard to make the fabric really soft and beautiful, so it stays with our brand DNA, which is soft, beautiful, yummy fabric. So I'm really excited about that, to see how that goes, because it feels great and it looks great, but it's recycled. So that's one initiative. The other two that we're launching later this year is we're making some fabric with milk fiber. So it's just absolutely gorgeous. The fabric is so soft, and it's also nourishing to your skin. And then we're doing some fabric with collagen built in, so it just nourishes your body as you're wearing it. So, and then in the context of coronavirus, one of the things that we worked really hard on very quickly was seeing, we're going to all want protective clothing. So we're launching a protective line next month, which the masks that it's a built-in mask into your product, into your clothes. And the masks have antiviral protection as well as antimicrobial. And the chemical that we're using is OEKO-TEX certified. So it's not harmful chemicals. So it just, we're going to have to go out into the world, and we're going to want to be safe. So we thought that was a relevant product for this time being.
That's definitely relevant, as well as adding some of these beauty attributes into fabrics too. So kind of combining from beauty as well as functionality of clothing. It's really interesting. I think we're gonna have to wrap in a couple of seconds, but does anyone have anything they want to add that they're just super excited to see coming up? Yvette?
What's really exciting in what's happening now is, but not at scale, is the regenerative agriculture in cotton, where the carbon is sequestered in the soil, and the yields are higher. There's not a lot of water that is needed to grow the cotton. And then it just has all of these wonderful qualities for the farmer. There's cover crops where they can grow their own crops as well and grow their own food. So that's a space that's really interesting, and just to look out for.
Yeah. Yeah, we make our dust bags out of recycled organic cotton from Italy, and our shoe boxes are FSC certified. So we've touched on that a little bit. So it's exciting to hear that you like that.
Yeah.
And that it's a thing now. It's exciting. So
I think I would just close with the importance of technology and really enabling all of this and making it visible to the customer. I think one of the things that has been instrumental on our end has been our partnership with Everything, which is basically an Internet of Things company that has allowed us to create unique digital identities for each of the garments. And for us, we've largely started at the farm level. So that was something that we came about accidentally in sourcing our wool at the farm level in Tasmania. And to be able to create this experience for the customer to actually see the entire product journey from the farm up, I think adds so much value to what everyone here is doing, because it makes it really real and connected. And it can still be used for authentication, which has been such a core problem in resale. So there's so much hard work that goes behind all of these sustainable brands. And I think it's just an incredible and powerful tool to bring the customer much closer and make all of that work much more visible.
Yeah. I echo that. I was just literally, when Yvette mentioned around regenerative agriculture, I was about to say the same. I think what's exciting me is the fact that we're really seeing kind of framework and metric systems, because right now I think there is a vagueness when it comes to measuring impact. So things like the SBTs, which really help companies kind of trace and track from source to impact where they're making the biggest impact within their organizations, so they can be accountable for that and make the correct changes to minimize their impact. But the idea of being restorative and regenerative is a huge thing right now. Why do we only have to focus on doing less bad? Why can't we focus on actually doing good? Which ties into clothing that nurtures the body and ties into replanting, restoring nature that gives us so much of what we use for the clothes that we wear. So yeah, I echo everything that was just said.
Absolutely. Thank you everyone for sharing all these really cool ideas. I think it gives people a lot to think about, just knowing the whole regenerative concept, circularity, taking things from e-waste. Like, you can really take things that are already in a landfill and get them back out, as well as you can keep carbon in the earth rather than in the atmosphere. So many interesting things. So thank you, each and every one of you, for joining this panel today. I hope that you guys out there found it informative. Please feel free to share you can follow us at GlamHive and share this using the hashtag GlamHiveLive. And so again, thank you to everyone, as well as to Mary Kay and Cadillac for coming together with us today.
thank you.
Guys.
Thank you.
Bye,
Ciao.
everyone.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Ciao.
Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.